Friends, today I want to share the amazing story of Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. This is not just a history lesson. It's an exciting journey filled with drama, power, love, and ambition. Cleopatra was one of the most famous women in history, and her life is like a thrilling movie. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this incredible story, perfect for your English practice. I promise you will love it. Chapter 1. Cleopatra's Early Life. Over 2,000 years ago, in 69 BCE, a baby girl was born in Alexandria, Egypt. Her name was Cleopatra VII. She would grow up to be a unique queen. Cleopatra was born into a royal family called the Ptolemaic dynasty. This family ruled Egypt for many years but came from Greece. Her ancestor, Ptolemy I, was on of Alexander the Great's generals. He became king of Egypt after Alexander died. Cleopatra's father was King Ptolemy XII. Her mother might have been Cleopatra V, but historians are not sure. Cleopatra grew up in a palace with luxury, servants, and the best education. However, life in a royal family was dangerous. Family members often fought for power and sometimes killed each other. From a young age, Cleopatra learned that knowledge was power. While most women were not educated, she studied hard. She learned many languages, including Greek, Latin, Egyptian, and Hebrew. It is said she could speak at least 7 languages fluently. This made her special. Cleopatra was also curious and studied science, math, literature, and politics. She wanted to be a wise and powerful ruler. But her childhood was not all happy. Her father was not a strong ruler, and many people in Egypt disliked him. Sometimes, Cleopatra's family had to leave Egypt for safety. When Cleopatra was about 14, her life changed forever. Her mother disappeared. Some say she died, while others believe she was killed. Soon after, her father became very sick, and Cleopatra had to prepare to fight for the throne. Even though she was part of a Greek family, Cleopatra loved Egypt deeply. She respected Egyptian traditions and was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language. She even presented herself as the goddess Isis, a powerful figure in Egyptian mythology. By the time Cleopatra was a young woman, she was ready to rule. But she knew it would not be easy. She had many enemies, and she would need to be brave, clever, and strong. Thus, the story of Cleopatra's rise to power begins. Chapter 2. Cleopatra becomes queen. Cleopatra was no ordinary young woman. From the moment she was born, her destiny was to rule. But becoming queen was not easy. When Cleopatra was 18, her father passed away. In his will, he declared that Cleopatra would rule Egypt. However, she had to share the throne with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10 years old. Cleopatra didn't want to share her power. She believed she was smarter and more capable than her brother. At first, she tried to work with him, but soon their advisors plotted against her. They wanted Ptolemy XIII to have all the power because he was easier to control. Cleopatra's life became dangerous, and she was forced to leave the palace and flee to the desert. Imagine Cleopatra, the rightful queen, wandering in the hot desert with only a few loyal followers. She had no home, no army, and no throne. But Cleopatra was not the kind of woman who gave up. While in exile, she made a plan. She knew she needed help to take back her throne. Luckily, a powerful Roman general named Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt. Cleopatra saw an opportunity. She decided to meet Caesar, but needed to do something dramatic to grab his attention. One night, she had a servant wrap her in a large carpet. The servant carried the carpet into Caesar's quarters as a gift. When the carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra appeared, looking stunning and confident. Caesar was surprised to see this beautiful, intelligent young woman. Cleopatra spoke to him with charm and intelligence, sharing her struggles and dreams. Caesar was impressed and agreed to help her regain her throne. Together, they planned to defeat Ptolemy XIII and his advisors. Cleopatra's enemies didn't stand a chance against their combined forces. After a fierce battle, Ptolemy XIII was defeated, and Cleopatra was restored as the Queen of Egypt. But Cleopatra wanted more than just her throne back. She wanted Egypt to be powerful and respected again. She worked closely with Caesar to strengthen her country. She introduced new policies, improved trade, and built a strong relationship between Egypt and Rome. Chapter 3: Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was now the Queen of Egypt, but her life was not peaceful. She had won her throne back with Caesar's help, but their story was also about love, ambition, and danger. After defeating her brother, Cleopatra became the most powerful person in Egypt. She admired Caesar's strength and intelligence, while he admired her beauty and clever mind. Even though Caesar was much older than Cleopatra, their connection was strong. Cleopatra invited Caesar to stay in Egypt, and they explored the beautiful city of Alexandria together. Cleopatra showed him the rich culture and history of Egypt, and Caesar was impressed. In 47 BCE, Cleopatra became pregnant and gave birth to a son named Ptolemy Caesar. People called him Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Cleopatra believed her son would one day unite Egypt and Rome, creating a powerful empire. However, their happiness didn't last long. Many people in Rome disliked Caesar being close to a foreign queen. They thought Cleopatra was trying to control Rome through Caesar. Caesar decided to return to Rome but invited Cleopatra to come with him. She agreed and traveled to Rome with Caesarion and a grand entourage. Imagine Cleopatra arriving in Rome with golden chariots, exotic animals, and beautiful Egyptian servants. She wanted to show the Romans Egypt's wealth and power. In Rome, Cleopatra lived in luxury, attended banquets, and met important leaders. However, not everyone welcomed her. Roman women were unhappy because Cleopatra was so different. While in Rome, Cleopatra witnessed Caesar's rise to power. He declared himself dictator for life, meaning he had complete control over Rome. Cleopatra hoped this would strengthen their alliance, but trouble was brewing. In 44 BCE, something terrible happened. Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators who feared his growing power. His death shocked the world, and Cleopatra was devastated. She had lost her greatest ally and the father of her son. Without Caesar, Cleopatra knew her life was in danger. Many saw her as a threat, and she had to act quickly. She gathered her servants, her son, and her treasures and fled back to Egypt. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra was determined to stay strong. She mourned Caesar's death but continued to rule with wisdom and courage. She strengthened her army, improved the economy, and prepared for future challenges. Cleopatra also focused on protecting her son, Caesar. She taught him about politics and leadership. She knew Egypt was still in danger, so she looked for new ways to protect her country and her throne. This chapter of Cleopatra's life was filled with love, loss, and survival. She faced one of the greatest tragedies of her life but refused to give up. Chapter 4: Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra's life took another exciting turn after Julius Caesar's death. This chapter is about her meeting with Mark Antony, a powerful leader in Rome. Their story became one of the most famous love stories in history. After Caesar died, Rome was in chaos. Many powerful men fought for control, including Mark Antony, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, and Lepidus. Mark Antony was a brave soldier and skilled leader. He had heard about Cleopatra, the beautiful and intelligent queen of Egypt, but they had never met. Mark Antony wanted Egypt's support because it was rich and powerful. Cleopatra wanted to protect Egypt from Rome's growing power. She knew that building an alliance with Mark Antony could help her achieve that. One day, Mark Antony sent a message to Cleopatra, asking her to meet him in Tarsus, a city in modern-day Turkey. Cleopatra saw this as her chance to impress him. When she arrived in Tarsus, she made a grand entrance. Cleopatra sailed on a golden ship with silver oars and purple sails. She dressed as the goddess Aphrodite and surrounded herself with beautiful servants. When Antony saw Cleopatra, he was amazed. She was confident, intelligent, and beautiful. Their meeting marked the beginning of a powerful and passionate relationship. Cleopatra invited Antony to Egypt, and he accepted. In Alexandria, they enjoyed lavish banquets, parties, and games. They laughed, shared stories, and made plans for the future. Antony fell deeply in love with Cleopatra, and she loved him too. Together, they dreamed of creating a great empire that would rule both Rome and Egypt. However, their relationship was also about politics. Antony needed Cleopatra's wealth for his military campaigns, and Cleopatra needed Antony's power to protect Egypt. They both knew they were stronger together. Cleopatra and Antony's love grew, and they had 3 children together: a son named Alexander Aelios, a daughter named Cleopatra Selene, and another son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Cleopatra was proud of her family and believed her children would one day rule a great empire. However, not everyone was happy about their relationship. In Rome, Antony's alliance with Cleopatra angered many, especially Octavian. Octavian saw Cleopatra as a threat and accused her of trying to control Rome. He spread rumors that Cleopatra had bewitched Antony. Antony was already married to Octavian's sister, Octavia, but he chose to stay with Cleopatra. This created tension between Antony and Octavian, leading to war. Octavian declared Cleopatra and Antony enemies of Rome and sent his army to fight them. Chapter 5. The Fall of Cleopatra. Cleopatra and Mark Antony were ready to fight for their love, dreams, and kingdoms. They stood together, determined to protect everything they had built. But their final chapter was filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and courage that would inspire people for centuries. Octavian was determined to destroy Cleopatra and Antony. He wanted to take control of Egypt and stop Antony from gaining more power. Octavian's army was strong and well prepared for war. Cleopatra and Antony decided to face Octavian in a great naval battle known as the Battle of Actium, which took place in 31 BCE near Greece. Cleopatra brought her fleet of Egyptian ships, and Antony brought his Roman forces. They believed they could win. On the day of the battle, the sea was filled with ships and soldiers. Cleopatra and Antony fought bravely, but Octavian's army was too strong. During the battle, Cleopatra's ship suddenly turned and sailed away. Many believe she retreated to protect her fleet and herself, but Antony misunderstood her actions. He thought Cleopatra had betrayed him. Feeling heartbroken, Antony's forces began to fall apart. Octavian's army defeated them, and Antony returned to Egypt to find Cleopatra. When they met, Cleopatra explained her actions. She told Antony she had not betrayed him. She only wanted to save their lives. Antony believed her, and their love remained strong, but they knew their enemies were closing in. Octavian's army followed them to Egypt. Cleopatra and Antony tried to defend Alexandria, but they were outnumbered. They realized they couldn't win this war, but were determined to stay together until the end. Antony fought bravely in one last battle, but his army was defeated. Heartbroken and believing Cleopatra was dead, Antony fell on his sword. As he lay dying, news came that Cleopatra was still alive. His servants carried him to her hiding place, and the two lovers shared their final moments together. Antony died in Cleopatra's arms, leaving her alone to face her enemies. Cleopatra knew Octavian would soon capture her. She refused to let him parade her through Rome as a prisoner. Cleopatra was a woman of pride and dignity. In her final moments, she dressed in her royal robes and crown, surrounded by treasures. According to legend, she arranged for a poisonous snake called an ass to be brought to her. She allowed the snake to bite her, ending her life on her own terms. When Octavian arrived, he found Cleopatra dead in her royal chamber. He was shocked but also impressed by her courage. Cleopatra's death marked the end of the Egyptian kingdom. Octavian took control of Egypt, and it became part of the Roman Empire. But Cleopatra's story didn't end there. Her life and love with Antony became legendary. People admired her for her intelligence, bravery, and determination. She was not just a queen. She was a symbol of strength and courage. Cleopatra's story teaches us that even in tough times, we can stand strong and fight for what we believe in. She never gave up on her dreams or her country. Her life may have ended in tragedy, but her legacy lives on. Let Cleopatra's story inspire you to be strong, dream big, and never let fear stop you. Her life was filled with struggles, but it was also filled with love, hope, and greatness. Be like Cleopatra, bold, fearless, and unforgettable. What do you think of this incredible journey? Isn't Cleopatra's story one of the most inspiring in history? Let her life remind you that no matter how hard life gets, you have the power to rise above it.